Today's song that I'd like to talk about is a big favourite up and down the country of Ireland. I know that I personally have a really big love for this song. My family has a big place in their heart for this song, and I would guess that most people in Ireland have a really big place in their heart for this song too. It is a big favourite. I grew up hearing this song being played by my dad at every event, at every occasion, and then on any given day during the week on top of that. This song was written by two men called Frank and Sean O'Mara in 1985, and it has been performed by many bands such as the Wolf Tones, the Dubliners, and the High Kings. This song is written from the viewpoint of a man called Joseph Plunkett about his fiancée called Grace Gifford. And Joseph Plunkett is one of Ireland's most infamous rebels. Plunkett was a journalist, he was a poet, he was a revolutionary, and he was a leader in one of Ireland's most prolific battles, the Easter Rising of 1916. In 1913, Plunkett joined the Irish Volunteers, and in 1915, he joined the Irish Republican Brotherhood, where he was appointed to Director of Military Operations for the Easter Rising. He was stationed at the G.P.O, which is the General Post Office, and this was the headquarters for the Rising. And this is where one of Ireland's most prolific battles took place against the British forces. Plunkett is also one of the 7 signatories of the Irish Proclamation, which is one of Ireland's most important historic documents. He was eventually captured by British forces, and along with 13 other men, 6 of which were also signatories of the proclamation, he was taken to Kilmainham Gaol and he was executed by firing squad. On the night of May 2nd, 1916, less than 12 hours before his death, Plunkett was given permission to marry his fiancée, Grace Gifford, within the confines of Kilmainham Gaol. They had originally planned to be married on Easter Sunday, but this had to be postponed due to the Easter Rising. They were allowed a brief ceremony in the chapel within the jail, and Grace Gifford was made leave directly after the ceremony was finished. She was allowed to return the next morning just before dawn for a 10-minute visit under heavily armed guard, where both attempted to express their love for each other before she was ordered to leave again. She took with her Plunkett's keys and a lock of his hair and was ordered to leave. And as she left the jail, Plunkett was brought out to be executed. The following words were written by Grace about her experience. I entered Kilmainham Gaol on May 2nd at 6 p.m. when I saw him for the first time in the prison chapel, where the marriage was gone through and no speech allowed. He was taken back to his cell and I left the prison. I went to bed at 1:30 and at 2 o'clock I was awoken by a policeman with a letter from the prison commandant, Major Lennon, asking me to visit Joseph Plunkett. I was brought there in a motor and saw my husband in his cell, the interview occupying 10 minutes. During the interview, the cell was packed with officers and a sergeant who kept a watch in his hand and closed the interview by saying, "Your time is now up." We had never had enough time to say what we wanted to each other, and we found in these last 10 minutes we couldn't talk at all. So I will play this song, Grace, now, and have a little chat about the lyrics afterwards. So this is Grace. As we gather in the chapel here in old Kilmainham Gaol, I think about the last few weeks. Will they say we failed through our school days? We were told to yearn for liberty, but all I want in this dark place is to have you here with me. Oh, Grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They'll take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my heart I place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. Now I know it's hard for like to share our love, for we must say goodbye. Now as the dawn is breaking, my heart is breaking too. As I walk out on this May morn, my thoughts will be with you. And I'll write some words upon the wall so everyone will know I loved so much that I could see his blood upon the rose. Oh, Grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They'll take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my heart I place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. No, there won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. Sinead, that's Grace. The first verse of the song takes place in the chapel in Kilmainham Gaol, where Joseph Plunkett begins to wonder, will he be remembered fondly by his people after the Easter Rising did not go exactly as planned? He asks, will they say we failed? It goes on to say that all he wants right now is to have Grace by his side. In the chorus, he asks Grace to just hold him and allow them to stay in that moment and let it linger, because he knows that very, very soon he will die. With all his love, he puts his wedding ring on Grace's finger, and it's all very bittersweet because although they are finally getting to be married, they know that they will not get to share their lives or their love together for very long. In the second verse, Plunkett attempts to explain his actions throughout the Easter Rising to Grace. But to be honest, this really wasn't very necessary because Grace too was a rebel, and after his death, Grace continued to promote the Republican cause, and she too similarly ended up in Kilmainham Gaol 7 years later. Grace, however, did get released after 3 months, so she was not executed like Plunkett. He explains to her his love for his country and his love for his fellow countrymen who fought by his side. He tells her that even though he was bedridden with sickness, that as soon as Padraig called for him, he left his sickbed and joined Padraig's side. The sickbed spoken about in the song is a reference to Joseph Plunkett having only recently left hospital after surgery. He was having surgery on his throat to try and battle his chronic TB, which had been an illness he had suffered from since he was a child. But even this would not stop him from fighting for his cause. The Padraig that he speaks about is Padraig Pearse. Padraig Pearse was the commander-in-chief during the Easter Rising, and he was also stationed alongside Joseph Plunkett in the G.P.O. Pearse was the one who drafted the Irish Proclamation, and he was also one of the 7 signatories of it, which in turn meant that he too, alongside Plunkett, was executed in Kilmainham Gaol for his involvement in the Easter Rising. The final verse of the song takes place on the morning of Joseph Plunkett's execution. He tells Grace that as he has walked out to his death, that he will only be thinking of her. The final 2 lines in the song are, I'll write some words upon the wall so everyone will know I loved so much that I could see his blood upon the rose. This final line is a reference to one of Plunkett's poems, I See His Blood Upon the Rose. Plunkett wrote this poem about his Christian faith, and in this poem he uses nature and imagery to depict the sacrifices and crucifixion of Christ. So this line in the song, as well as to give reference to Plunkett's faith, also mirrors the sacrifices which he has made for his own country. And it also suggests that his faith gave him comfort as he walked out to be executed. Unlike other songs which I've covered in this series, there is no comedic or funny undertone in this song, but it does have a very inspirational theme. Although men like Plunkett fought and gave everything that they had, including eventually their lives, for the cause of Irish independence, they had no regrets. Plunkett, along with the 6 other signatories, walked with their heads held high when they were brought to be executed, because all of them knew very well that this is exactly the sacrifice that they would likely have to make for this cause. Just before he was shot, Plunkett's final words to the priest who had just performed his last rites and sacraments were, "Father, I am very happy. I am dying for the glory of God and the honour of Ireland." Then, on the morning of May 3rd, 1916, between 4 and 4:30 a.m, Joseph Plunkett was shot by a firing squad in the Stonebreakers Yard in Kilmainham Gaol. I hope that you learned a little bit about Ireland Day and a little bit about our Easter Rising. And if you have any questions about what I spoke about today or any questions about Ireland in general, please leave them in the comments below and I will try to answer them. Slán!